How's it going, guys? I hope you guys are having a great holiday. Yes, I am currently recording this video on a Christmas Eve. Hope you guys have a great Christmas as well. And as you can see, I have immediately bought the skin and put Armia on my main page because I actually do love this skin so much. But that is not the purpose of this video. I saw the Chinese stream last night where they were celebrating Armia's birthday and they were recapping the events throughout 2024. And I thought, you know what? Why not make us our own version for global? And here we are. Now, this video will be mostly focused on the operators that were released and their events. I'm not going to go too much on the reruns and other side events because, you know, this is usually what I do. I like to go through the operators because I think the stories and the operators are like the most interesting part. And then obviously, I do like to touch on the IS part as well. But like, yeah, that's not going to be too deep of a topic for today's video. So let's take a look at what happened during 2024 of Arknights Global. So we began the year with anniversary event, which gave us the Aya Alta, Typhon, and Swire. The Typhon and Aya banner was actually one of my favorite banners, to be honest, because sure, Aya was really game changing when it comes to a medic, but in the end, she is just that, a medic. She doesn't really like destroy the enemies on her own. She just keeps her operators alive, which is really nice. And Typhon is one of those operators where, you know, she's good at AFK, but she's not like out of this world as well. She's like pretty decent, and you can still see her in use in a lot of AFK strategies nowadays, which, yeah, I still think she's one of my favorite AFK operators and top of the list when it comes to that. But anywhere else, she's kind of mostly being faded away. She doesn't really do much, and you don't really see her as well. I feel like I'm one of the last person that actually still uses Typhon somehow. But, you know, I actually genuinely like this banner, and we got Swire Alter as our free operator as well. You know, nothing really wrong with her. She's not as OP as a lot of people might have liked, but she's also not like, you know, Crown Slayer level of despair. So it's pretty good. And I still remember this event because we actually fought Dolly the sheep. Does anyone remember this? Because I clearly remember how like the shield for Dolly was actually so annoying to deal with. I had to go through several iterations of how to deal with the shield, and then I settled on my way in the end. But I knew a lot of people were struggling with like, oh, when to break the shield and when to focus the damage. And, you know, I find the mechanic to be really interesting, but not also too taxing because, you know, it's not that hard to make, like, to get past the shield in itself. It's just you got to plan out your mechanics, and you got to throw your what were those, beer bottles or something, and then to change the grounds color and whatnot. It was a really basic mechanic, but also quite effective, and I kind of enjoyed it. And I think you can bypass the mechanic most of the time if you really wanted to. You can't brute force it. I didn't, but, you know, it's not that punishing if you didn't really understood the mechanic. You just throw the bottle down, you're mostly safe. So, you know, I think we started off with a really strong event for our anniversary and start of 2024. And then next up, we got ourselves Jessica Alta. And Jessica Alta is one of those operators where I was really recommending everyone to grab her because of how IS, like how important she is in IS. And I would still say she's still pretty decent. It's just that the current meta after the DLC where ending 4 has came in, and with all the new stages, it kind of fell off a little bit. But I still had a lot of fun playing with her with my defender and supporter squad with Virtuosa start. So in general, I think she's still quite an interesting operator. I rarely use her nowadays, and I think I rarely see people use her anyway. It's just like some of those Jessica fan really likes to use her still. And, you know, she's still perfectly fine if you really wanted to use her. So in general, I would say she's still a pretty good operator. And we fought Cliff during this event where, remember where it was the one where you would have the beams coming in? Yeah, that one was, wait, was that it? I don't even remember. I think this is one where there was those devices where if you attack it, there will shoot out beams and slow enemies within it and deal arch damage to them. I think that's the event. I don't really remember because that event was also really simple. I was just Minar and brute forced most of my way through. So maybe this is that event. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, next we had chapter 13, which I remember clearly because the mechanic was really frustrating. You would have these enemies that will die and then they'll leave a spike on the ground, right? And then if you attack it, and then if you couldn't kill it, it would just have the device on the field just respawn it, and you have to break that device for you to like clear out the pack or just keep charging at you not endlessly. That was really difficult to deal with. And oh, we got Hoederer, and I kind of said back in the day that Hoederer isn't really worth pulling because of his class. But recently, with IS5 DLC 1's release, Hoederer is actually one of the best operators to grab when you're dealing with the bosses and a lot of the difficult stages because of how much collectibles we can get, and he scales really well with collectibles. So if you happen to got Hoederer back in the day and you haven't raised him, this might now be a good time to raise him and then just prepare for IS5 if you're anywhere interested in that. And the boss we fought was this dude. I can't pronounce his name properly. Can't pronounce his name. I'm sorry. But yes, I remember I hit this boss really clearly because I actually failed this boss fight, the normal boss fight, first try. And this is a really rare occasion where I would fail. Like usually I would brute force first try and then I'll go and read the mechanic and then be like, oh, this is how you deal with it. And then we go on with the EX where like the EX is the really hard part, or with normal story, it's like the age stages. But this is one of those rare occasions where I failed the boss fight the first time and I had to go and read the mechanic and then dealt with it the second time. So I clearly remember this boss. I don't want to say I hated it, but it was one of those more frustrating enemies to deal with. And then next up, we had our Virtuosa and Viviana limited banner that also came with a free lessing. I think we all know how I feel about this banner. I've always felt that Viviana was a bit too weak. If you guys saw the Sessith video where he asked a lot of Arknights content creators like who's the operator that we think should be buffed the most, I answered Viviana because I genuinely really liked Viviana's character design. I really hope that she would be great, and then she came out and she's just like worse Surtur, or like yeah, you get what I mean. The good thing is we are getting a module for her soon ish where she actually gets a really good buff compared to all the other arts guards, and she actually gets pumped up quite a bit to about the same par as your other arts guards, so it makes her really viable. But we'll have to wait a bit more for that. And then Virtuosa, as we all know, works great with Nymph, which has not been released. So nothing. Virtuosa is a great operator. And in this event, we fought the Witch King, which is still one of those enemies that I don't really remember about. This was one of those easiest events. I think I just brute forced it both in the normal stage and EX stages. Didn't really leave a mark in me. I think some might have struggled a bit, but I haven't really seen anyone around me that really struggled with this boss. So I would remember this as one of the easier events. And then next we had Degenbrecher, which is still one of my favorite guards other than Minar, Silver Ash, and then Siege, and then Viviana, and you know, a lot of guards. And then we had Degenbrecher. Obviously, she is one of those operators that proved to us that archetype is not the issue. It's the character, like it's the skill design. Because remember back in the day when we had Chan and then we had Irene, which were like, oh yeah, they looked cool, but they didn't really do that much. They didn't impact as much. And the moment they turned, like gave out Degenbrecher and then her skill through with auto regen, and she immediately destroyed so many enemies. She was like, oh yeah, it's clearly not about the archetype. It's just about the character design and the skill design. Degenbrecher was one of those operators, and I think we fought, yes, Harold, which I clearly remember this event You remember the campfire thingy where Harold will just put them out and then deal a ton of damage if you don't like lit the fire again? Oh my god, that was so annoying. I had to do 2 runs, if I recall correctly, for the boss fight as well. It was just pain. And then you had to do, I remember you had to do this stage to grind materials as well. I had to figure out a steady way, a stable auto run for it to auto run, and it was really difficult because PRTS would just be like, oh yeah, I want to screw up, and you would fail the auto run, and you have to redesign it so that it's more stable. Yeah, I also clearly remember watching some other streamers where they would struggle with this stage really hard as well. It's one of those good old memories. I don't think I'll ever remember. I don't think I'll ever forget this mechanic personally. I think this is a well-designed event. It's just a bit too frustrating at the time, but now looking back, yeah, it's good. It's good memories. It's good memories. And that was the first half of 2024. And let's proceed with second half of 2024, where we got Ray in July. Ray is one of those events where she didn't really get her own mechanic in her event. It's like a bunch of other mechanics from other events, so I'll just talk about Ray mainly. Ray is still our best, like focusing on killing single target, elite or boss kind of sniper. Even though we have Wizardel, I understand that, but Ray is still one of the best when it comes to like, if you want to clear a specific elite that comes really frequently, because Wizardel's skill actually has a long cooldown, but Ray's skill you can actually just cancel, and then you can the cooldown is really slow, really quick. The cooldown is really low as well. So in terms of being able to like snipe down those elites, she's actually still the best in class, especially within like IS5, ISs. She's still one of the best snipers to grab, I would say. Obviously, there's others meta-wise, but if we ignore the meta and we just purely look at this operator's capability, I think she will stay here for a long time, maybe even till IS6 releases, perhaps. But yeah, she is a great sniper, and I would say that even though she doesn't work as well in your daily stages, because she does require you to know the stage very well to know like when the enemy or where the elite enemies will spawn. But in stages like in events like IS and whatnot, where you know the stage very well, she's still the best. And then next we had Shu banner, which came with Zorla, and this is one of those banners where I think everyone pulled for Shu just because of how strong the Sui sibling buff was, and I would say that like she mostly replaces my use of Sara as well, mostly because I usually use Sara skill 1 for AFK strats, and Shu just does the job better, and then I can bring the whole Sui sibling team and then just super buff all my AFK strats. Really enjoyed that part. Zola is, as I mentioned back in the Should You Pull video, you had to keep clicking him. Didn't really like using that part, but he's still pretty strong. So that's mainly my issue, where I'm a bit lazy. I don't want to activate my skills like 3 times, like once every 3 seconds. Just not a thing for me. And we fought the Slumbering of Sui, which is the event that I really enjoyed. So the event itself wasn't difficult. Like you could brute force it and mostly ignore the mechanic, I would say, because we had Aya Altar. You could just out heal the contaminated water. But it's a simple mechanic where you would just, pump water from the clear water into, you would pump clear water into the contaminated water, and that was kind of effective. And I think that's the good thing about this event's design, where the mechanic itself is effective, but also not that punishing if you didn't really understood it clearly, and it's also quite simple of a mechanic where you can just take a look, like stop a bit, take a look at where the clear water would be and where the contaminated water would be, and then put out some blocks to block the contaminated water from entering and whatnot, and you would basically solve the entire mechanic. So it's simple, effective, and not that punishing when it comes to if you just want to clear the stages. So it's a well-designed mechanic, and I really enjoyed the event. The boss in itself didn't really affect me that much. It wasn't that strong in my opinion. You could easily tank it with like your Shu or your Saria with a single medic. It's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I enjoyed the event greatly. And then next up we had Ella, which was our second Rainbow Six Siege collab. And Ella is still one of those operators that I think is still on our top of the... She really expands upon what the specialist class can do, in my opinion. She is also really flexible, giving support capabilities, also dealing like over 100k damage, raw damage from her skill 3 plus her mine combined. So you get a really strong operator that can not only just deal damage but also support with mines anywhere that you would like. Brings that flexibility into your gameplay, and you can play more reactive, and it does make the game more interactive, and I really enjoyed that part of Ella. And you can place her and her mines anywhere you want. Like don't have to care about if it's a high ground or a melee tile. You can just place them anywhere. Really nice in my opinion. The event though, I have no idea like what this mechanic was. It was so easy, I don't even remember it at all. Neither do I remember this boss. I think I brute forced it within like 2 seconds and it probably just died immediately, and I don't remember this boss at all. But Captain Martio, I think is the name. Yeah, probably something that is skippable. And then next up we had the Ascalon event, which is the Babel event. I think this is one of the most important events when it comes to story, because it actually gives us a lot of lore when it comes to how loaders came to be, and then how the whole backstory of Dr. Amia and everyone within Logos. So it's a really important story chapter. Plus, the operator was really nice. Ascalon is one of those operators that I still use every single day, and she's not really like that significant on first look on paper, but the moment you use her, you would realize how versatile and how easy she is to use. Her skill 1 is great for AFK. Her skill 2 is just brain dead. You can just activate skill 2 whenever you see a bunch of enemies, and it will probably solve the problem for you anyway. You don't have to worry about anything. Plus, now if you combine her with Wizardel and Logos, you can, like, your Wizardel can be in cooldown. You just use her skill 2. All enemies will be slowed to death, and then Wizardel will be ready when the Ascalon skill 2 is over, and you just finish all of them off. Really easy, works really well with most teams. Really great operator. I would say if you can grab her in the future and you haven't grabbed her yet, I would highly recommend grabbing her in the future. Even though there are some newer banners, I think she's still worth a grab. And during this event we fought Amia, which is one of the more interesting boss fights that I still clearly remember. You remember how when Amia was stood in the middle of the map and just shoot out, or was it beams or something? Or was it like projectiles to all like 8 directions? Top, down, left, right, and then all the diagonals. And then the operators getting hit by those would be slow to death and then just can't attack anything. And you also have the towers, that thingy, that would attack left, top, right, and bottom in like all these directions. And then it was such a cinematic stage, and you would be like intimidated on first glance. It would be like, oh my god, this is so complicated. And then the moment you try to put down your operators, like, oh, I can brute force this. And that's exactly what I did. I just brute forced it. But afterwards, learning how those slowing can be dodged, like can be blocked by other operators, and then help operate other operators behind them, I figured that out. And then I did it in a way smarter way in global. And I think it's a really great mechanic in general. Quite enjoyed it. And then, who could forget chapter 14, where we got Wizardel, Logos, and Civil Light Eterna, and where we fought Theresa, and also where we get our Amia medic form, which is where you would apply the newest skin that we could buy. Really love the skin. Really like Amia medic, by the way. Amia medic is really powerful in IS5. Our top grab when it comes to 5-star operators in IS5, especially how because she can take benefit from 3 of the class squads. You can get benefit from the the caster specialist squad, the sniper and medic squad, and also the guard and vanguard squad. You can all grab, with all of those, you can grab her with just one hope and E2 her with 0. Makes her a really easy grab, and her medic form and her caster form and even her guard form are all really useful in IS5. Actually highly recommend it if you haven't raised her yet. Bring her skill M6 her for her medic form. They're both really good. And then obviously we had Wizardel breaks everything. Actually, you would use Wizardel's skill 2 in IS5 once you get a lot of collectibles, because her skill 3 doesn't really scale well with collectibles, but her skill 2 scales really well. And then Logos, one of our best casters in the game right now. You would always use Logos nowadays if you want to do arts damage. And then Theresa, basically, you know, she's fine. She's fine. As a free operator, she's not that bad, all things considered. And obviously we went through the chapter 14. We finished, it feels like the main arc, because Armia usually gets her new form whenever we finish a main arc. So we might be starting a brand new arc when it comes to chapter 15, but we'll have to see. And that would be it. Oh yeah, we fought Theresa, and that was like one of the more interesting fights, because a lot of people didn't know how to deal with her stunning all operators. That was a fun watch when I watched other people struggle with it. I brute forced her the first try, so I didn't really understand her mechanic the first try. I went back and understood it, but that was later on. And at last, our newest event, the Olpianus event. I don't know what else to say. Olpianus, our captain, you know, is obviously a great operator. The event boss was pretty simple, I would say. It wasn't a hard event in general. And great operator. I don't think there's much to add to Abyssal Hunter. We all know the story. Like, we've gone through so many Abyssal Hunter arcs. I don't think there's much to add to that. Olpianus is also a great operator. That's about it for 2024. So I don't know how you went, if you guys are on like old players to this game, or are you guys new to this game? But I personally definitely felt like 2024 was one of those more packed years. We had so many good operators along the way. I really felt like I mostly recommended all the operators throughout the year, which I know kind of hurts our wallets, especially if you get like a few banners unlucky like me, and you just have to wail a bit. But yeah, I feel like this is mostly a year with mostly great operators, but didn't have too much power creeping other than Wizardel and Logos banner. But all other operators were just, oh yeah, they're pretty good, but not to the extent of, oh my god, completely a new era. Again, other than Wizardel. So I think this is a pretty good year. We didn't really go that far. We got a lot of interesting events, interesting stories, interesting operators, and I can't wait for next year, 2025, and see what new stuff we're gonna bring. So that's about it for me with Arknights in 2024. I'm going to chill a bit and wait for the new anniversary and perhaps the Enfield beta test, if I can get into that. Hopefully I can, but no guarantees to that because it's pure random. So good luck to me on that, and good luck to you all that have also signed up, and I will see you guys next year, and have a Merry Christmas for all of you. Bye.